Welcome to Conversations with Big Rich. This is an interview-style podcast. These interviewed are all involved in the off-road industry. Being involved, like all of my guests are, is a lifestyle, not just a job. I talk to past, present, and future legends, as well as business owners, employees, media, and land use warriors. Men and women who have found their way into this exciting and addictive lifestyle we call off-road. We discuss their personal history, struggles, successes, and reboots. We dive into what drives them to stay active in off-road. We all hope to shed some light on how to find a path into this world that we live and love and call off-road.
Whether you're crawling the Red Rocks of Moab or hauling your toys to the trail, Maxxis has the tires you can trust for performance and durability. 4 wheels or 2. Maxxis tires are the choice of champions because they know that whether for work or play, for fun or competition, Maxxis tires deliver. Choose Maxxis. Tread victoriously.
Have you seen 4Low magazine yet? 4Low magazine is a high-quality, well-written, four-wheel drive-focused magazine for the enthusiast market. If you still love the idea of a printed magazine, something to save and read at any time, 4Low is the magazine for you. 4Low cannot be found in stores, but you can have it delivered to your home or place of business. Visit 4lowmagazine.com to order your subscription today. On today's episode of Conversations with Big Rich, we will be speaking with Tyler Laursen. Tyler is a four-wheel drive businessman. He has his hands into a couple of things. The NorCal Rescue, MorrFlate is a business, and then he also is a podcaster with the SnailTrail 4x4. Tyler, thank you so much for coming on board and spending some time, and we're going to talk about your history in off-road.
Yeah, dude, thanks for having me. This is pretty cool. I'm a big podcaster. I love podcasting, so when you asked if I wanted to be on podcast, I was like, sign me up, man. That sounds like fun.
Yeah. The other side of the microphone this time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So let's go at the very beginning. Where were you born and raised?
Oh man, I was born and raised in Tulare, California, which is down where the new biggest lake in California is at. So Lake Tulare just kind of reared its ugly head and started taking over the farmland down there this winter with all the water and the wet winter we've had. So I grew up down there. So like seeing this big ass lake that's, bigger square mileage than Tahoe right now. And it's almost the same size as the Salton Sea. But it's only like 2 to 3 feet deep over its entire square mileage. So, but seeing this huge lake pop up, down where I grew up it's pretty cool to watch it. I know it's impacting a lot of farmland, and there's a lot of farmers losing out right now on it all, which is sad. But I don't think that's something that I'm ever going to see again in my lifetime. So
right. So
I grew up down in Tulare, and then I moved up to Visalia halfway through high school, and all throughout growing up, my dad was big into off-roading. He still is in the club 4x4 Him, which has a couple of higher ups, board members from Corva and California in it now. So I grew up, it's also the club that Marlon Chakowski from Marlin Crawler was in. So getting to kind of grow up around that scene of Toyotas and dual cases as Marlin was developing the dual case in the 4.7 gears, and then going wheeling up in the Shaver Lake area, growing up all the time. That's kind of where, I don't know, this intro and passion into off-roading and the outdoors kind of started at for me, was just kind of growing up around these really cool people in the off-road industry and doing some really cool things with vehicles. So,
well, and that's a great childhood.
mm-hmm.
Being able to be out there, with those, and it's all family orientated.
Mm-hmm.
So that was probably pretty cool. You got it. Were some of the other members that your dad and family would wheel with? Were there other kids involved?
There was a few others. There was a couple of couples that really kind of took me on almost like their kid on these trips. So I remember Dan Skaggs, I believe his last name was, Dr. Dan, and then Dave Skaggs, that's what his name is. And then so Dave Skaggs and Dr. Dan, two different people, and their wives were always kind of, I would jump into their rigs and hang out with them for a few hours and then go jump in with other rigs. And, when we went snow wheeling, they would set up an inner tube behind their vehicles, and I would jump in the inner tube and ride along for a while. And, growing up in the club environment, definitely ingrained this kind of sense of community, I guess. And really enjoying going out and experiencing the outdoors with other people. So
great. That's kind of how my kids grew up too. It wasn't so much a club scene. It was just, we didn't have an organized club here up in the Placerville, Georgetown area. Most of us wheelers that hung out together were just hanging out. But it was the same kind of thing. The kids have some good stories to tell about, first time rollovers, that kind of stuff. Getting stuck in the swamp on the Rubicon, what used to be where the gatekeeper is now. Just off to the side of that was an area that we used to call the swamp, which was the entranceway. And my son was probably 7 at that time. The first time he got stuck in the swamp with a friend of mine, and all he could think about was swamp alligators. And all of a sudden he starts yelling and screaming. I can hear him over the CB and across. It's dark out. We just rolled one of the Jeeps on the way up out of the bowl, and so he decided he didn't want to ride in that Jeep anymore. So he went in and jumped into a friend's Toyota, and then gets stuck in the swamp. And he's just kind of like, he starts to freak out a little bit. I'm going to anybody that's listening to this it's going to embarrass him a little bit, but he started screaming, and we were like, "What's the problem?" And he goes, "Alligators, alligators." Because the water was pouring in.
Yeah. Was that Little Rich? Or
yep, that was Little Rich. Yeah.
Yep. Perfect.
Yeah, it's a pretty funny story. He's not afraid of that kind of stuff anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. You get him desensitized young. So
exactly. Yeah. And then yelling at him, "Shut up! Don't worry about it." I may not have always been the understanding father that way. The nurturing, cuddle type father. I was more the kick him in the ass and grow up.
Yeah. You got it. You're fine. Yeah. Deal with it.
Yeah, he's turned out all right. So
yeah.
So then, when you were going to school, most of that time was in Visalia. Then.
Tulare. I went kindergarten through 8th grade in Tulare, and then freshman, sophomore year of high school was at Tulare Western, and then junior and senior year was over at Mount Whitney in Visalia.
Okay. And how were you as a student?
I was one of those really good students. I was always trying to get good grades. You were
one of those, huh?
Yes. Yeah, I was into physics, chemistry. I didn't enjoy biology too much, but physics, I really enjoyed physics. And then, chemistry was fun too. But once I started getting into the chemistry classes, I was kind of checked out of high school. I was like, I'm kind of done with this, but I was still doing the minimum in order to get decent grades. And then when I went to college, I started at College of the Sequoias, COS, the JC there in Visalia. And I started down a path of just kind of like, whatever. I just want to get into the workforce and start making my own money. Because I grew up pretty much on food stamps. And so being able to survive and have enough income to be able to pay my own bills, help support my family, and get up that way. That was a big priority for me leaving high school. And then some personal stuff happened with my family and my mother, and I ended up kind of being like, I need to get my life back on track. And so after a year and a half, 2 years at COS, I moved up to Sacramento to do schooling at Sac State. And that was kind of that move from the Central Valley, which if anybody listens to the SnailTrail podcast, I always call, I'm always like, yeah, sorry. As soon as I hear somebody's from the Central Valley, the San Joaquin Valley, I'm like, yeah, I never have any intentions or desires to go back, but I love it up here in Sacramento. Everything is spread out. It's not a super, super dense population like you get at the Bay Area or, LA. You're within 2 hours of anything that you want to do, whether you want to go to the beach, whether you want to go up into, hunting area up, Chico, Yuba City, Orville, whether you want to get up to Tahoe, up into the mountains, whether you want to do wheeling in the high Sierras, whether you want to do whitewater rafting. There's a ton of whitewater rafting in El Dorado County. So your Sacramento is a great central location for going out adventuring. And that's kind of what I ended up falling in love with as I got into my own adult life here, where I got to start playing with adult money and having adult toys. And I'm staying here now. So it's fun.
So you had some motivation growing up when you started to get into business, then was to make sure that you were always going to be secure.
Yep, pretty much. Yep.
Did you play any sports when you were in school?
Yeah, I played baseball. I'm 6'4" now, so I was always kind of the tall, lanky, awkward kid growing up through school. So I had long whip-like arms, so I was the big thrower. So I played a lot of center field and pitching, and I played baseball. God, what was it? 12, 13 years growing up, and then I was never taught proper pitching mechanics, and my follow through on my pitch ended up hyperextending my arm on my leg every single time, which does not do well on elbows over a long amount of time. So I got to the point where I couldn't really pitch more than 2 innings anymore, and decided that, maybe baseball was not going to be the thing for me. I was looking at being on varsity my sophomore year of high school as a starting pitcher for Tulare Western. And it just ended up, I couldn't, my arm was already too far gone, my elbow. And so I went over and started playing tennis. My stepmother was a big, big tennis player. And so I ended up kind of moving over to tennis and then played tennis for years after that. So I played, sophomore, junior, senior year of high school. I played at Sac State, not for the varsity team. I ended up playing for the traveling club team, which was a lot of fun because it's a little bit more laid back. You're not, having to put in 80 hours a week of training into, playing a varsity sport. But you still get to go travel and play these other really big schools like Stanford, UCLA, Berkeley, Davis had a really good tennis traveling club team. And so my last year of school at Sac State, we ended up, the Sac State club team ended up going to state. So we got to play USC's club team and a bunch of other, the kind of the big name tennis teams in the state. And so that was a lot of fun. That was kind of the highlight. I ended up getting to be president of the tennis club and the traveling team and deal with all the logistics and signing up for tournaments and handling insurance for the team and the income of the team and expenditures of the team. And so doing that for like a year and a half, 2 years, the presidency of the tennis club team, and really making it a competitive team and growing the club on campus taught me a lot about business and what's needed to, if you are passionate about something. I found that the best way to make sure that it succeeds is just kind of do it and take it over and be I've always one of my mottos is be the change you want to see in the world. So if I want to see the tennis club at Sac State become a powerhouse, step up and do it. And so that's kind of what I did. And by doing that, I learned a lot about how to run an organization. What are the things that you really have to do, and the T's crossed and the I's dotted to make sure that organization succeeds. And so my last year of tennis there at Sac State, we made it to state. We ended up finishing 6, 7 out of 8 schools that made it. And then I also got nominated for Leader of the Year by the USTA for the college stuff. And so that was a really cool nomination. And I ended up coming in second place against all the nominations nationwide for the U.S. Tennis Association. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, that was a really cool, a really fun time in life. And that led into a short 10-year stint in the tennis industry. I was a sales rep for Wilson Sporting Goods here in NorCal. And then just over time, I was wheeling at the same time, and that was really my side hobby, and where my passion was getting into was off-roading and outdoor recreation and vehicular recreation. And everybody at Wilson thought I was a nut job because I wanted to build vehicles with 40-inch tires and multiple transfer cases and the suspension that drops out and makes the vehicle look broken and all this stuff. And everybody was like, yeah, we don't get that. We don't understand that. And so
yeah, they go jump into their BMWs, right?
Exactly. Yes. They're like, yeah, I have a Hellcat Charger. And I'm like, cool. What have you done to the turbos? What are you doing with your wastegate? And they're like, what?
Yeah, I put gas in it.
Exactly.
Have the oil change done.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that was always funny. A running joke around Wilson was, I'm the weirdo with the car enthusiast, the gearhead at Wilson. But it kind of got to the point where I wanted, a little bit more money to help build my off-roading vehicles, or at least help pay for braking stuff every weekend. And so I ended up, I'm also extremely lazy. I don't know if lazy is the right word. I think extremely efficient, I think is a better word. So wanting to not have to squat down at my tires for long periods of time because I'm 6'4", and my knees don't want to work when I get back up. I was like looking around, like, there's got to be a better way to air up and down. This is stupid. It's the most monotonous, dumbest thing we have to do at off-roading. We don't enjoy doing it because, we want to get out and do the off-roading. We don't want to do the stuff to get ready for off-roading. And so I was looking around on the internet, and I found a couple of DIY designs for a 4-tire hose kit that allows you to air up and air down. And I was like, it's a cool idea in theory, but God, they're using terrible parts. Like,
right?
Why would you use a rubber PVC hose that freezes when you go snow wheeling? You can't use it; it's unusable. Why? And it degrades in UV, has a terrible UV degradation rate. And so, and then other things too. Why is this fitting here? These air chucks suck. They're terrible. They never hold on right. And so I ended up taking, and over the period of like 5 years, finding new parts and things that work better and things that work worse and things that are just like, oh, well, that's not going to work out at all. And, pivot and change around that. And then finally I got to the point where I had a kind of a usable product, and people started asking me to build them. And I was like, yeah, sure. Just cover the cost of the parts and give me an extra $50, and that'll go and help me pay for gas when I'm going out up to the Rubicon and all this other stuff. And they're like, yeah, sure, no problem. And then it just kind of went from there. And then, so we kind of went to market in January 19. I think I started working on building kits in 2014 and 2015. And then, the next year, 2020, COVID hit, 21 and 22 during COVID, just the outdoor industry exploded, as we all know.
Right.
And it was really kind of good timing, right place, right time, with a good product that made a lot of people's lives easier. It solved a major pain point of off-roading. And I was able to quit my job as a sales rep for Wilson and start hiring people here and start being able to supply jobs and incomes for people, and do it in a really, really rad industry with some really cool people. And it's just kind of been a freight train since then, and it's been a lot of fun.
So relatively new, but exciting. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And so what kind of product, besides just what kind of product line do you have besides just the basic kit?
Yeah, good question. So we have our 4-tire hose kit. That's what our staple product is. That's what everything is kind of built and designed around for the company. But we've got 2-tire hose kits. We now have single-tire hose kits for inflators, and we did that one. We actually had a request from a PG&E repair facility that they wanted to know if we could make multi-tire kits or single-tire kits. And so I was like, yeah, we could totally do a single-tire inflator. And I was like, hey, I'm curious, and as I started looking into that, every single tire inflator in the market, except for maybe Power Tank. I think Power Tank has some really awesome single tire inflators, but every other single tire inflator that you typically see requires the technician or the user to be squatting next to the tire in order to use it. The hose lengths aren't long enough to be able to really stand up and be comfortable while you're using the inflator. And so I was like, well, that's stupid. Why make people be uncomfortable? Then it's going to be a job that they're going to hate doing. And then through talking and doing some work with the PG&E facility, we decided on a couple of different hose length options, because the other big issue is that they're pressurizing tires and heavy equipment and their repair trucks to 110, 120 PSI. And if something fails on the tire, the technician is in the direct line of sight for being harmed. So being able to have a longer hose off of the inflator makes things a lot safer for the technicians, makes things a lot more comfortable and easier on the technicians as well. We got the single tire inflators. We've got, and then kind of something that I hadn't planned on originally when starting this company was 12-volt compressors. I was like, there's a lot of great compressor companies on the market already. I would rather partner with them and help sell their product. I'm a big believer in a rising tide raises all ships, right? So the more that we can cross promote other businesses and partner with other businesses and do really cool things for consumers, the better off the entire industry is going to be. And so, but I got to the point where I realized that by hooking up 4 tires at a time, you're actually increasing the airflow capacity that you can now use on compressors. And there's no compressors in the market that maximize the airflow that 4 tires can accept at a time. And so, because the restriction point of a tire and any air system for inflating and deflating is going to be the Schrader valve, the valve stem in your tire itself.
Right.
And because with that valve core in there, you're only looking at like 1/16 of an inch ID flow rate, flowing orifice. And so a 1/16 can only flow 2, maybe 2.5 CFM at higher pressures. And so you're really limited. If you have a compressor, say like a twin ARB, which is a phenomenal compressor, and it's pushing 6.2 CFM into a valve that can only accept 2 CFM, you're getting back pressure building up on the compressor. And that compressor then has to work harder to overcome the pressures to get air into your tire through that little bottleneck, which makes the compressors run a lot hotter, which then blows gaskets and seals over time. And especially if you have a 20RB mounted in an engine bay where it's already hot, 20RBs, the lifespan of them, some will end up going out, or one of the motors of the two motors in there will end up going out after a year, maybe 2 years. So by running a 4-tire hose system, you're helping that $600 investment last a hell of a lot longer because the compressor is now working efficiently.
Well, it makes total sense.
Right? And that's something that we never thought about until there's 4-tire hose kits on the market now. And so then, so that was a big thing in and of itself, just helping your 20RBs, your Smittybilt compressors, the 5.65 CFMs, that everybody, those are the two big compressors on the market. Having those run efficiently helps them last a lot longer now. But we realize that there's still more room. We still have more airflow. If one valve stem is running 2 to 2.5 CFM, that means we can now start using compressors that push 8 to 12 CFM. And there's no real compressors on the market that do that. And so we ended up getting with a couple of different air compressor factories that make some really good compressors from some really well-known brands, and to kind of put our heads together with them to say, hey, we're looking for a compressor that does anywhere from 10 to 12 CFM of airflow. And, what do you guys have kind of in the works? Or do you have anything in the works? Can we help you design something? And so we started working on designs with a couple of different engineers at the factories to come up with some pretty rad compressors. And so our first compressor design that we came out with was our 10.6 compressor, which is a 10.6 CFM dual cylinder portable compressor. And we kind of launched it. We got the first batch of production run, and we realized that the factory ended up selling the same compressor to Napa Auto Parts.
Oh, really?
So Napa, having the purchasing power that they have, they brought in a ton of them, undercut the market, and that's that Napa Maxi Track compressor that a lot of people have now. And so when they came out with that, I was like, all right, so let's take this to stage 2. Let's cancel our production on that particular model. There was other things I wanted to do to the compressor, but I also wanted something out on the market so that we can start putting our foot into the compressor market. And so we just kind of canceled that and said, all right, let's go back to the drawing board and redesign, make some design changes. And so we ended up doing some modifications that did better heat sink ability. We added an internal pressure cutoff switch so that it can be easily mounted and set up as an onboard air compressor, and made a better bag for it, and a universal United States standard fitting off of the compressor that people can hook into. So you don't have that annoying Australian and Chinese Asian market compressor called a Nitto Q that you can't find fittings for here in the United States.
Right.
So we did all those changes, and then came back out with a production run about roughly a year, almost a year and a half later from that very first production run that we did. And that compressor has been awesome. That has, been a great seller. It's been doing great when you pair it with a 4-tire hose kit. We can air up a full set of 35-inch tires from 10 PSI to 30 PSI in under 5 minutes.
Oh, very good.
Yeah. So we're saving people time. We're taking away that pain point of airing up. And then I was like, well, okay, this compressor is awesome, but there's still room for improvement. So there's still ways that we can make this even better through me being extremely efficient rather than lazy. I was like, what if we could get the compressor to just set its own pressure and control its own pressure so that a user doesn't have to monitor it anymore? What if we could use something like that? So we started working on that, 2.5 years ago, of implementing different ideas, different ways to accomplish that, through pressure regulators, through airflow regulators, through all sorts of different things. And ultimately, what needed to be done was a digital pressure regulator needed to be made. And the technology needed to be made to use digital sensors so that we could get the accuracy that we're looking at in the lower pressures that off-roaders use. So we started working on that and came out with a couple of different ideas, couple different prototypes, and landed ultimately on one that we really liked, put it into production, and that is going to be due out here in, I think it's going to be here at our warehouse in about 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, on our first production run of those compressors. So you'll be able to say if you need to air up to 30 PSI, you can set the compressor to go to 30 PSI and it'll air everything up until everything's at 30 PSI and then shut itself off. So you can essentially start airing up and then go make a sandwich, or start airing up and go tease and razz all your buddies that are still squatting around their tires, or you can go on a hike or go fishing, and whatever you want to do, go do something else than just have to sit there and monitor airing up. So that compressor, I think, is going to be an awesome hit. We're getting a lot of good feedback on it. The pre-orders are out right now. And we don't charge anything up front for the pre-orders. And we're just literally just trying to create a line, and it's being received very well so far. And yeah, so that's kind of where things are at now. And I think there's still room for improvement for helping make air up and air down, inflation, deflation easier, more convenient, more efficient on users out there. So we're still looking at launching. Oh God, I still have 5 to 10 more products easily in my head that we want to work on. So it's just a matter of kind of prioritizing and looking at what's the next feasible one, and having to make those decisions onto which one we launch and bring to market next. So
excellent. Yeah. And did you get an agreement with the pump manufacturer this time that they're not going to sell to a big box store?
Yeah. So we're now, I hate patents personally. Right. I think patents are something that companies hide behind to hide their bad customer service. So if you have a patent, then that keeps competition out of the market, right? It keeps competition out of what you're doing. And I'm like, I like competition. I think competition drives markets forwards. It drives innovation. So I'm a big fan of competition. I like that we have competitors. And I would much, much rather earn our customers than try and hide behind patents. And so I'm a big fan of offering absolutely the best customer service, low risk purchasing decisions. When you see our brand, the MorrFlate brand, you can know that we are going to stand behind not just the product that we make, but the people that we serve. I see it, a lot of people look at businesses as a product business, right? And first and foremost, manufacturing a product. And that's not how I view business. I think businesses should first and foremost always be a service. Every business should envision that they are in a service industry. You are servicing customers no matter what you're doing. And so that's really how I truly view it. And I'm a big believer that people make the world go around, and, take care of people, and you'll always be taken care of in return. Things will typically go generally well for you in life. And so, I don't like to hide behind patents. I don't like to have to force people to make agreements not to sell. our stuff to other competitors. But with this compressor here, we ended up, it's just such a cool, badass compressor, being able to set your pressure and air up your vehicle in under 6.5 minutes, and you don't have to do anything. That's pretty cool. And the factory ended up going with that and going to all of our competitors and saying, hey, look, we have this cool thing. Do you guys want it too now? So it's looking like our competitors are going to be coming out with the exact same compressor here. And so we're going to go back to the drawing board and make some changes to make the compressors better, make them more durable, make them last longer, make them more user-friendly. And that one, we are getting an agreement, and we might end up filing some patents on finally, just to keep it so that, you know, if people want to R&D and make their own stuff, I am so on board with that. I'm like, yeah, absolutely, go for it. I like to see the other ideas that competitors come up with. But if something is so easy as sending a picture to a factory and saying, hey, we want this too, and the factory does it, that's not cool. So,
right.
Yeah, so that I think we're finally getting to the point where we're becoming kind of a big enough target in the off-road world that we need to start doing things so I can protect my employees' futures and make sure that everybody associated with MorrFlate continues to see MorrFlate in the future. So, yeah.
No, I agree. It's one of the things that drives me nuts with our industry, because that's what I'm familiar with, but it happens everywhere. If you're not protected, you know, I mean, how many years at SEMA did you know, Chinese companies come in and have the same exact product as, you know, somebody else's that did all the work. You know, they put in all the work, they put in all the design, they put all the testing in, they found somebody to build it, and then that builder just said, okay, now we're going to start producing it ourselves, or, you know, somebody, you know, our next door neighbor will, you know, will sell it. So it's you've got to protect yourself on some of that stuff, especially when, you know, you've put the time in.
Yeah, the time and energy to put in, and, you know, if other people want to put in that time and energy, I'm so on board with that. I'm like, cool, awesome. But being able to just bypass all of that and ride the coattails of other people's time and energy, I'm not a big fan of. So,
right.
Yeah. And it's, you know, it's maybe call it naivety with being relatively new to business. And, but yeah, I would say that we're starting to get to that point where we're going to have to start doing some of those things and sending out letters to people finally. So,
yeah, you don't mind if the guy, you know, down the street is going, well, you know, I can do this myself in my garage. But then all of a sudden, when, you know, like you said, you know, Napa Auto Parts, you know, their buying power is so huge that they can come in and just totally undercut the market.
I'm all for DIY. You know, DIY there's a lot of really rad stuff that we have in the off-road industry that has come from DIY. Somebody just being really smart and developing something in their garages. That's how the transfer cases from Marlin and the dual case adapters. And we just interviewed Quinn from 74 Weld the other day. You know, that's how the portals for Ultra 4 cars from 74 Weld, and the portals now that he's launching for the Jeeps and Tacomas and Broncos, that's how they came about. Because he was just like, yeah, we lose money on building portals for Ultra 4 racers, but he does it because he loves doing it. And he's got the know-how and the knowledge to do it. So, you know, cool, awesome stuff has come in the off-road industry because people are DIYing stuff. So I don't want to stop the DIYer. I don't think anybody should look to stop the DIYer. If somebody wants to try and make something for themselves in their garage and use it and maybe do a couple for their buddies, I'm all for that. But when when they start getting to the point where, you know, Napa Auto Parts or a nationwide seller is
Smitty-Built
now kind of taking, Smitty-Built, the Transamerica's of the world, taking those ideas and making them their own. Yeah, that's not cool. But I think that also the major players in the off-road industry, the major consumers that are really out there, fabricating and doing stuff on their vehicles, I think they also understand that as well, and they can see through most of the marketing games that companies try and play. So yeah, I always kind of joke around with people. I think the off-roading industry is the biggest little industry because everybody knows everybody. And it's a big community, and it's very community driven. So I think people that are really ingrained in that community understand a lot of the marketing tactics and the marketing games and don't play into them. So
I agree.
Yeah, it's a cool industry. It's a really rad industry to be a part of.
So then you have a list of products on the way. I know we won't talk about those because we don't want somebody to beat you to the punch. But that's good that you have a list of things that that you want to bring to market. That's cool. So then, what about let's talk about the NorCal Rescue.
Yeah, that's a fun. That's kind of like one of my side hobbies, right? It's one of the ways. So I'm a big glutton for volunteerism, giving back to the industry, and making sure that we continue to have places to go off-roading, people to go off-roading with into the future. So for like MorrFlate, one of the goals of the company was I wanted to help funnel funds back into nonprofit organizations that are really fighting to keep our trails open. So I think so far since 2019, we've donated. We just at the beginning when we did our taxes this year, we added to the number. It was $47,500 since 2019
Wow.
back into nonprofit organizations nationwide. So that's a big deal for me. Being able to go ahead and help and do trail maintenance stuff, helping keep trails clear and open, closing down bypasses that people create. That's another big thing for me. So I'm the vice president of the Mad Hatters 4x4 Club here in NorCal. And one of my jobs as vice president is to be in charge of the Adopt a Trail section that we do on the Rubicon. So the section of trail from Wentworth Springs Campground into the Intertie at the quote unquote main trail nowadays, I oversee the maintenance on that section. So being able to make sure that stays clear and we're not having erosion issues that threaten shutting down the trail, sediment issues, making sure all the silt pots and the BMPs, as the county likes to call them, are clear and operating properly. I oversee that. And then, so the other big thing that we do is NorCal 4x4 Rescue. And this comes to the people. Ultimately, no matter what you're doing, no matter how many precautions you take, how long you've been in this hobby, you're going to get to a point where you need to rely on somebody to help you because you broke something, you got stuck, you can't get out of wherever you are. I'm a big believer in clubs to help mitigate that risk. But there's a lot of people out there that get into off-roading, and especially with COVID, with all the newbies coming into off-roading, they don't understand the risk and the dangers of this hobby. And so being able to help organize this page on Facebook that is literally just volunteers volunteering their time to go out and be a network of support for each other is really freaking cool. I think it's something that really sets NorCal apart and the wheeling community and the off-road community in NorCal. So if somebody, say, gets stuck in the snow up on Mormon Immigrant Trail during snow time, if you can get to cell service and be able to post on that page with your GPS coordinates saying, hey, I'm stuck here, can somebody please come help me? People will go up and help. And our response time has actually been pretty impressive. I think I would say we can usually have somebody dispatched within about 20 to 30 minutes. And then we have, 30,000 people on that page now spread out all across NorCal. And so we can usually get somebody there to the scene within a couple of hours of a request going out, which is pretty impressive. And it's all free of charge. And it's just literally people who love going out wheeling and love helping people. It's kind of turned into this really neat network community of like-minded people that love off-roading and helping people. So that's fun. It's a great community resource, and it's really cool to see that being used and utilized. And we work closely with different search and rescue teams in the area, because search and rescue will go get people out, but they won't get their property out. Right. So a lot of times what happens is search and rescue will run in. They can get on the scene sometimes quicker than we can, and get people out. The thing is, though, that they will go in no matter what the situation is, no matter what time it is. They'll get the people out, leave the vehicles there, get the people to safety in a hotel for the night, and then kind of recommend the people to reach out to us to coordinate over the next week or something, next day, whatever it is, to go in and help them get their property, recover their property. So it's a really cool community resource, something that I've been involved with for quite a while. I think I joined the page back when it had only 2,000 to 3,000 members. And then I quickly, again, be the change you want to see in the world. If you want to see something prosper, then really try and take ownership of it. So I got involved in the leadership of the group, and now I'm one of the 3 owners, and we have it up at 30,000 people of this really cool resource network to be a safety net for people while they're off-roading.
And I think that's really important nowadays. Like you said, there's so many new people that are into the sport or coming into the sport that have, they don't know their vehicle. They don't wrench.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Not just, getting stuck because of conditions, but getting stuck because of their vehicle failure, or driving failure. I mean, I see that all the time. And, and then the second fold of that is the people that are involved in doing the rescues and it gives them a reason to get out. And, instead of going, I'm just going to go down this trail. Now I got a reason to go down this trail.
Yep.
And I see that I doing the traveling that I do across the United States, it seems like that whole rescue organization type of a page, especially Facebook groups, are huge. Down in Corpus Christi area, there's 361 Rescue, and now there's a second page down there that's doing the same thing, and all across the United States there's groups that are doing this, and I think it's I think it's a great idea and a great resource for people.
Yeah, I kind of feel bad because there's people that have built their livelihood off of being an off-road recovery service. Like, a big example is Matt's Off-Road Recovery out of Utah, that everybody knows about. And these pages are definitely hindering that livelihood, and it sucks. But at the same time, it's like, off-road recovery is such a bad, it's a shitty business to be in, because you're really getting people at one of their worst moments in life, and you're hitting them with a $5,000 to $6,000 bill, and there's a lot. It's very expensive to do, and so you really need to have those expenses and that cost. But at the same time, like, people, I just feel bad. I feel terrible about having to charge people that much money for them, to just because they got stuck in a mud hole or misjudged the size of the rock that they thought they could go over or something like that. I don't know. It's just, it's a double-edged sword, and being able to have people that do have the knowledge, do have the equipment, because we're going out and doing that all the time anyways. It's a really cool solution to helping out people around you. And one of the other things that was kind of cool, speaking of that, helping out people around you, is the ability, because there's been a lot of, I don't want to say a lot, there's been 2 really big winters that we've had in NorCal here, that since I've been involved with the NorCal 4x4 rescue page, and being able to, us already having lifted vehicles, bigger tires, the ability to air down to 0 PSI if we want to, winches, and a ton of recovery equipment. You live in the Placerville area, and I want to say a couple of years ago, we had the Snowmageddon where Placerville just got dumped on by snow. Placerville, Pollock Pines, everything up kind of that way. You guys got I want to say it was 20 feet of snow in a week, something like that. It was crazy. And the snow plows couldn't keep up with keeping the streets clear for the community. And so what we ended up doing was we took everybody that, on the page that loves snow wheeling, has experienced snow wheeling, has experience with snow recoveries, because if you're not getting stuck snow wheeling, then are you really snow wheeling? So kind of snow wheeling is it comes with the territory, understanding how to work a winch and a kinetic rope. And so we sent teams of people up into Pollock Pines and Placerville area during the Snowmageddon year, just to drive through neighborhoods to make sure that there was still tracks and people could get out of their houses to go and get supplies. Drive over berms, because the snow plows were coming around and creating these 6-foot berms in front of people's driveways, and people couldn't clear the berms fast enough before the next snow plow would come around. And being able to knock down those berms and create tracks so people could get out of their houses and go get the resupplies for themselves. That was another really cool thing that kind of came out of the page that we hadn't really intended to use the page for, but it's we have these vehicles, we have the skill sets and the knowledge. It's just a matter of coordinating the people to be able to go up and really help out a community. So being able to do stuff like that is something that kind of gets me going, right? It's one of the things that I live for. So
right.
Yeah.
No, it makes total sense. Back in the day, I'm talking mid to late 80s, when it would snow, I would just throw, ropes and chains in the back of my 86 Chevy 1-ton, and, I'd go cruise around, Apple Hill, Pollock Pines, Camino, up Mormon Immigrant Trail. And it was, I'd go pull people out. I would never charge anybody unless they were just idiots. Or
idiots or assholes.
Correct. Idiots and assholes got charged. And I remember one time there was a guy in a Nissan pickup that had a shell on it, and he went off an embankment up there by Big Cut Road or one of those, somewhere up off of Mormon Immigrant. And he was 40 feet down the side of the embankment, sideways. He hadn't rolled it somehow. There was so much snow that it wasn't going to roll, but he had, you could see his tire marks, and he was just playing, being a guy in the snow, him and his buddy, and they went over the embankment. Well, they had 3 kids with them that were all in the back of the pickup truck, no seat belts, no padding.
Oh no.
So when we got up there, when I come up, I there's 3 kids and a guy standing on the side of the road, and the other guy was down with the truck, and I pull up and I'm like, what what are you doing out here? And the guy goes, well, we lost it and it's over the edge. And he goes, can you help us get out? And I looked over made sure I had, if I had enough equipment. And I said, yeah, I can get you out. And I go, but it's going to cost you. And he goes, really? And I said, well, yeah. I said, you were playing, and obviously these kids were not in the cab, so they weren't seatbelted. You're going to pay the idiot parent tax for being stupid, and it's going to be $200. And the guy was like, well, we don't have $200 on us. And I said, well, I can take you, there's a ATM down at Sly Park Lake at the little bar down there. I'm sure that the ATM's got enough money in it. And they were really indignant. And I said, well, I'll give you a ride down there because I'm on my way out. I'll take the kids with me, and they can sit down there at the restaurant while you guys wait for a tow company, if the tow truck can get up here. And that'll cost you probably about $1,000. And so we finally got them out of there. But the attitude was what they ended up paying. If they hadn't had the attitude and they hadn't endangered their kids doing stupid stuff like they were doing, I would have just yanked them out and not worried about it. But they were, they needed to be taxed. Stupidity should hurt.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a big fan of if people make a stupid decision, then help them out, but they need to understand the gravity of what could have happened, what the gravity of the situation they were actually in. You don't know what you don't know, and I'm a big believer that education is a key thing. So if you can get somebody out and help educate them at the same time, be like, you guys are about to become a statistic here, so that's whatever helps. Sometimes, a very drastic consequence can help nail that home to people. So,
exactly. I can't tell you how many times I've been up on like Mormon or Wentworth Springs Road, trying to go over Heartless from either direction, and come across people in a car that's front wheel drive or just two wheel, not 4-wheel drive or all wheel drive, and they're like, Can we make it? I'm like, no, turn around.
No. Yeah. You are in the wrong place, buddy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When I turned around, then you need to turn around.
Yeah, seriously.
So then let's talk about your podcast.
Yeah. Man, podcasting, that's fun. I don't know. I met my co-host, Jimmy Jet. He runs the SnailTrail 4x4 YouTube channel. And so he's we met from a co-friend, and we're all into Toyotas, and the co-friend was like, I had a first-gen 4Runner at that time, dual cased and all the fun goodies on it, solid axled. And he goes, do you really like these kind of earlier gen Toyotas? I was like, yes, they're awesome. They're so easy to work on. They're like Legos. You just kind of put them together and bolt them together, and you can do whatever you want to them. And he goes, I have this other buddy named Jimmy that also loves these kind of older gen Toyotas. You guys should meet sometime. I think you'd be good friends. You think you guys would see eye to eye. And I was like, the first time I went over to Jimmy's shop, he had his mini truck out on 37s. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then he had another couple of rigs that he was working on and kind of torn apart, all mini trucks. And I was like, oh, this is going to be great. And we immediately became best friends and decided to start this podcast and just kind of sit down. And we love BSing and talking about off-roading. And we both agreed that, we need more education in the off-roading world for people, whether it's understanding what trail etiquette is, understanding how to do recovery rigging safely and responsibly, whether it's understanding, the different land use fights that we have going on in Moab or Oceana Dunes or Sand Hollow now. whatever the education point is, we thought that we had something that we can help contribute to the off-road industry, and do it in a way that kind of helps entertain people too, helps kind of pass the time for people. And so we decided to start the podcast, put it under the SnailTrail 4x4 brand, and 4 years later here with 411 episodes, I think. And it's we're still having just as much fun with it. We're getting to meet a lot of really cool people in the industry. It's getting to see the people side of it, whether it's the people in the industry or whether it's, listeners that recognize our voices out at off-roading events. It's a lot of fun meeting people and getting to see the people behind the community here that we have. So podcast has been a lot of fun. I think we're going to continue doing it. I don't see that slowing down anytime soon.
Excellent. That's good to hear. When does the podcast air?
Yeah, we air on Mondays and Thursdays. So 2 episodes a week, Monday, Thursday mornings.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how long is the podcast?
Oh God,
Typically?
too long. It's too long. No, it's about an hour. We try and keep it an hour to an hour and a half, somewhere in that range. We originally tried doing 1 episode a week and ended up having 2.5, almost 3 hour long episodes. And we're like, this is too much for people. We don't want to become a Joe Rogan. And so we ended up splitting it up, and we sit down and record on one day. But we record 2 episodes, and the Mondays are typically we try and do something educational, informational, and then Thursdays are more of kind of like, what have we personally been up to? What projects are we doing? What kind of work are we working on our rigs? What off-roading trips or camping trips did we go on recently? How was the off-road event that we went to? So that's kind of how that plays out. We really want to maintain some form of education information, but also we found that we get a lot of opportunities being self-employed to go out and do some really fun things in the off-roading world, so being able to share those stories with people is a treat too.
Excellent.
Yep.
So what about you going to be at Cantina?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I got recruited to be the MC for Cantina. So
there you go.
I'll have a microphone in my hand all day long and get to talk to people. It'll be great. I'm excited.
I'm glad you're doing that. I don't know if I could do that all day long.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I'll be drinking lots of water. I don't know if I'll end up having a hoarse voice by the end of the day, but it'll be a fun day. It really kind of helps RTF maintain some of the stuff that they need to keep tabs on throughout the day. They had, I guess, trouble doing that last year and trying to keep the day flowing for everybody, as well as putting out fires as they came up. So being able to kind of help keep things flowing and keep the user experience fun and exciting is something that I love doing. So I think it should be a fun job for the day.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
And let's talk about family.
Yeah. Okay.
So
what do you want to know about family?
Well, yours. What wife, kids.
Yeah, I have a wife. She's fantastic. She is the reason why I was able to make the leap away from my safe, comfortable sales job into, really going my own direction with my own business. Without her support there, and without her kind of being the breadwinner as we were getting things up and running, MorrFlate wouldn't have happened, and being able to have this much fun in the off-road industry and getting to meet the people that we're getting to meet, wouldn't be able to do it without her and her support. So that's the wife. We don't have any kids, so we'll see if that ends up changing. We're not sure yet. We're just we're both having fun, and we like where we're at in life, and we'll see if kids end up coming around or not. My dad and my grandfather are both really big into off-roading, or in the outdoors. My dad is more of the off-roader. My grandfather was a game warden for Colusa County for his career, and so being in the outdoors is a big passion of his. He actually grew up for a few years of life. I want to say 8 through 12 years old on the Feather River. He had his parents had a mining claim, so my great grandparents on the Feather River. So, yeah, if you go down near, if you know where Millsap Bar is,
Yep.
The claim was just upstream, maybe half a mile, 3/4 of a mile up from Millsap Bar. So, the Feather River is a great family tradition, and going down and visiting places like Millsap, Cleghorn, Stag Point, up in that area is a lot of fun with the Quincy LaPorte area. So, yeah, I guess our love for the outdoors with our family really stems from my grandfather, and then my dad got into off-roading, which then my uncle got into off-roading, and my dad was always into Toyotas. My uncle was always into his Jeep, and so it was kind of a fun razzing. We got to razz each other every once in a while. And then when I started getting old enough to have adult money to play around with and do my own thing, I ended up getting a 2007 dual cab long bed Tacoma. That was a TRD Sport. So essentially limited slip in the rear, open in the front, and a 138-inch wheelbase. 143? Oh, a way long wheelbase. And I took that thing into Red Lake and the Red Mountain trails out in Shaver Lake area. I took it snow wheeling up outside of Arnold. So there's a lot of places I took that truck that it probably shouldn't have gone. And I finally decided that I should probably get an actual proper off-road trail vehicle. And that's where I ended up with the first gen 4Runner as my first crawler, quote unquote. But I have my dad and my grandfather to, I think, thank for a lot of my passion for outdoor recreation, vehicular recreation.
Cool. So, question I have to ask: did you meet your wife playing tennis?
No. So I'm actually divorced. I got married young at 22, I think. And that first marriage, that was a wife I met in tennis. And then it was just too young. I don't recommend anybody get married that young. You don't have life figured out. There's a lot of changes still that you're going to undergo through your development as a person. And we just changed and went different directions. So my second wife, I did meet online, and she's fantastic. She's a keeper for sure.
Excellent. Well, Cool. Well, Tyler, I'd like to say thank you so much for spending the time with us and talking about your life and your interests and business and all that. And it's been great to get to know you.
Yeah, man. This has been a lot of fun. I never realized that you were kind of local here in the NorCal area until the board meetings with the county supervisor this year. Yeah, when I was like, hey, that's Rich Klein standing up there in Placerville talking to the board, the county supervisor, the board of supervisors. I was like, oh, that's cool. He must be around here somewhere. And then, reaching out and getting to know you better too. That's been a lot of fun. So
yeah, we're back in the area, or I should say, I'm back in the area. My wife is Shelly. She's this is her first stint, you might say, in Northern California. But I always considered Placerville my home, even though I was born and raised through high school down in the San Francisco Bay Area. This is where my heart was always at, and I moved away when I met Shelly back in 2009, and then we lived on the road full time, and then came back here to help my parents. they're in their 80s, and health wise and just physically, to maintain the house and stuff was too much. So we moved back here last year, and we're going to be here as long as we need to be here. But yeah, we're local now.
That's cool. Yeah, it's funny how the High Sierras seem to have that draw where you end up just kind of stealing your heart, and you end up really kind of adopting and taking in the High Sierras area as what you consider home. I think it's a pretty cool thing, but I've heard that story from quite a few different people. John Arns is another big one that comes to mind that kind of has a similar thing where he was like, I ended up in the Sierras and I absolutely love it up here, and this is where home is. So that's what he considers. So yeah.
Yeah, my parents bought property up here in '71 in Placerville, even though we were living down in the Bay Area, and so it was a second home. Or we'd come up in the winters and go skiing or go down, hang out in the summertime and hit the rivers and that kind of stuff and camp and base out of the house here. But that's the parents moved back up here because I was living up here and raising a family, and then when they retired, they moved back up here, and then I moved on, and now I'm back. So yeah, it's I just wish the political climate and the state of confusion. I mean, California here would would align itself a little more centric.
Yeah, that's definitely. I mean, I don't know. It's a tough spot, right? I'm a big believer in people, but at the same time, I'm also a big believer that we shouldn't bubble wrap people.
No.
And so
stupidity should hurt.
Yes, exactly. And so it's like, how do you walk that fine line? But then the state has seemed to, take that to an extreme. And so you have issues with the political climate of the state and some of the things and the decisions that the state makes, but you can't beat the outdoor recreation that we have in this state either. And it's a really hard thing, and it's an internal struggle for me as well. Like, I'm like, man, yeah, the state just made this other decision here or that, and you're like, man, really? You guys really think that that's a problem? That's a problem that needs to be solved? I don't think so. You disagree with it, and you want to do something about it, or you want to leave or go to another state, but then you end up having to leave places that such beauty that we have, like the Rubicon Trail, Fordyce, Barrett Lake, all these really awesome, amazing High Sierra places. I can't bring myself to do it. So I don't know. It's a double-edged sword, and I think one that I think a lot of us are just unfortunately accepting
right
as we continue life. Yeah.
And because if all the conservatives or the centrics move out because of the politics, then the state's really going to go to hell in a handbasket. But it's on its way. But you can't. I agree. You can't beat the beauty and the diversity of recreation opportunities here in the state. It's absolutely amazing.
Yep, I agree.
I mean, when I was a kid, I surfed, water skied, and snow skied all in the same day.
Oh yeah, dude. So I did a stint there of 5-6 years where I was whitewater rafting. I was a guide on the South Fork of the American River there, right through Placerville and Lotus.
Okay.
And there was a day during springtime where the guides would get together and we'd be like, let's go snow skiing and then whitewater rafting and then end up out at a beach, out near San Francisco or Santa Cruz or something, lounging on the beach in the evening time or swimming in the ocean. And so that was always the trifecta days where we'd go up to, Sierra Tahoe and then hit up the whitewater rafting for a couple hours and then end up at the beach at the end of the day. It was those are fun days.
Absolutely. All right, Tyler. Let's plan on getting together. I'll see you at Cantina for sure, and we'll go from there. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sounds good, Rich. Thanks for having me on. It's always fun to sit down and talk about the outdoor recreation world with people. So thanks for having me on, and Yeah, we'll see you out at Cantina, man.
Excellent. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thanks, Rich.
Well, that's another episode of Conversations with Big Rich. I'd like to thank you all for listening. If you could do us a favor and leave us a review on any podcast service that you happen to be listening on, or send us an email or a text message or a Facebook message, and let me know any ideas that you have, or if there's anybody that you have that you think would be a great guest, please forward the contact information to me so that we can try to get them on. And always remember, live life to the fullest. Enjoying life is a must. Follow your dreams and live life with all the gusto you can. Thank you.